أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك، وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الله أكبر كبيرا.
الله أكبر، الله أكبر، الله أكبر.
الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيما، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي. أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك. فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك، فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور، فلم أر مولاي كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك. فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله، ولا شبيه يشاكله، ولا ظهير يعاضده. قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه، ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أرماني. فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه، ولا يغلق بابه، ولا يرد سائله، ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين، ويرفع المستضعفين، ويضع المستكبرين، ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبين الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين، معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها، وترجف الأرض وعمارها، وتموج البحار وما يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا، وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير، وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك، وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر، ما صليت وتباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين. وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي، حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك، صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر، وحفه بملائكتك المقربين، وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك، حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ذلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، واعطنا ما به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا، يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطيين. اشف به صدورنا، واذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدونا إله الحق. آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك بفقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبضر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه، وسلطان حق تظهره، ورحمة منك تجللنا، وعافية منك تلبسنا، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Jazakumullah. Thank you to Brother Mustafa for a very beautiful recitation of Dua al-Iftitah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it on your behalf and on all of our behalf. I'd like to request everyone to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for the marhumin of your own families, the marhumin of our community, in particular ulama and shuhada al-Islam, and for the sponsors of today's program, Qamar Raza Ta'asir Hussain family and their marhumin, and inshallah for Sayyid Hamid Hussain, Siddiqa Begum, Anwar Begum, Irshad Ali, Rushta Begum, Rushta Rabab, daughter of Fayyaz Hussain. For all of these marhumin, please recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. And in addition to the names I mentioned, also Sister Shireen Jafri and Naqi Jafri, and for their marhumin. Let us also pray for Allah to grant them forgiveness in the company of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Today, inshallah, we will be taking a brief look at surah number 103 of the Quran, and that is Suratul Asr. And this is one of those short chapters of the Quran, like the ones that we have looked at in the past nights. Suratul Asr consists of just 3 short ayat, and it's one of those chapters that many people learn very early in their familiarity with the Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Al-Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. These 3 short verses contain a great deal of meaning, a great deal of importance. And as we have said before, whether we're looking at Surah Al-Nasr or Surah Al-Kawthar or Surah Al-Asr, any of these short surahs, some of which we have talked about, some of which we will look at inshallah in the future, the length of the surah does not correspond to the importance of the message contained within the surah. Just like in normal life, if something is very important, we often shorten it to make sure that the message doesn't get lost. So if I have an emergency, I might say help. And within that one sentence, help, is perhaps a great deal of detail that is implied. I have come into a difficult situation. I need urgent attention. And we don't say that in words because we want to get the message out quickly and effectively. Or for example, if somebody else is in danger, I might say, watch out or look out, just 2 words. But those 2 words may mean, for example, there is an oncoming car and you are in traffic and there is a risk of injury or death, so please move out of the way. I don't say all of that detail, but the detail is implied within the 2 words, watch out or look out. or help. Similarly, in the Quran, these brief chapters of the Quran, they contain a great deal of depth, and that deeper meaning is something that we have to understand. Allah did not put it in words for the same reason that we speak briefly when we have an important message to give out, that Allah wants the essence of the message and the attention of the reader or the listener to be present. And then by thinking about and examining the text, we are able to understand that deeper meaning. So one thing that we should remember is when we recite these short surahs in salat, don't recite them quickly and don't recite them in one breath. It's makruh. So if you're reciting Surah al-Asr, for example, the best way is to do each ayah in a separate breath. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Or you can combine the first two ayahs and then do the third ayah in a second breath. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. But the point is to take each phrase and each sentence individually, to recite it deliberately, gradually, and thinking about the meaning. So what is the meaning of these three verses? Surah al-Asr, the name itself implies that this surah deals with time. And al-Asr can have two meanings. One is time in general. So I can say we are in the Asr of information or the Asr of technology, or the Asr, for example, of whatever social, political, economic events are around us. Or it can mean a particular time of day, which is the afternoon. In particular, the hours before sunset. That is what the name of Salatul Asr comes from. Salatul Asr is called Asr because it's performed in the afternoon. So we have two meanings, and both of those meanings can be relevant to the meaning of this surah. Wal Asr is a qasam, an oath. Allah says, I swear by Asr. If we take it in the sense of time in general, then Allah is speaking about the reality of our limited resource of time. And time is unique among the resources that we have in that it can't be stored and it cannot be saved. And if we take Asr in the meaning of afternoon, then it's referring to what is usually one of the busiest times of our day. Whether it be in the time of the Prophet and Imams, والسلام, or our present time, afternoon is often when we are at the peak of our worldly concerns. We have work to finish up, errands, maybe family responsibilities, an evening meal to prepare. That's when there's rush hour. People are trying to get home from their commitments, from work, from school. So traffic is busy and people are in a rush emotionally, and they're distracted because they're trying to take care of their responsibilities, get home so they can relax. Asr is a time then when we are often busy and distracted with worldly concerns, and we might get forgetful of what is truly important, which is our religious responsibilities and our religious concerns. So if we take the second meaning, wal asr is saying, I swear by that busy time of your day in the afternoon when you have all of the tasks that are left over from the morning left, and you're thinking about what you need to do before you go to sleep at night. And don't forget that this is just the commotion, the busyness that's part of life, but don't let that substitute in your mind, in your heart, in your priorities for what is truly important. Don't miss or delay Salatul Asr because you're running late on other commitments. Don't rush through Salatul Asr because of those other commitments. So that's one meaning. If we take the more general meaning that, though, it's referring to time in and of itself. Even when we have less responsibilities, let's say it's a weekend, let's say it's a time in our life when we're on summer vacation or we're retired, we don't have that busy schedule that we sometimes do. Still, time is a limited resource. If I get an amount of money that I wasn't expecting, let's say that I have an inheritance, I have a stimulus check, I have an unexpected influx of money, I can save that money. I can say, all right, I'm going to put that money over here, and I'm going to ask a family member, a financial advisor, what should I do with this? Should I pay down my debt? Should I upgrade my car so it's a more reliable transportation? Should I invest it somewhere? I can think about it. I can get advice, and then I can make an optimal decision with regard to how to use that money. Or if anything else comes into my possession, if I have an object in my possession, then I can get it appraised. I can think about, how do I want to use this piece of furniture? Can I modify it? Can I refurbish it? Should I sell it? Should I give it away? And while I'm making that decision, that asset, that money, that object is there for me. But with time, I don't have that luxury. If I have an extra hour that I didn't expect was going to be free, I can't say, let me store this hour, and then I'll call up my friend, I'll call up an alim, I'll contemplate, maybe I'll give an hour of thought, and then I'll see how to use that time. Because the moments of your life, they will continue to march forward. And we continue to march closer to our death. We can't stop it. We can't pause it. We can't go back. We can't change it. We can't store it. So time is perhaps the most important of the blessings and the resources that Allah has given us for us to have a plan for us to be deliberate. With money, let's say that I stored some money, I wanted to make a decision, and I lost it. It got lost, God forbid, stolen, it got spent. Well, inshallah, I will earn money in the future as well. And that's the nature of our material possessions. But with time, if it's lost, then it's gone forever. That time is not coming back. And there's no substitute that is going to come. So all of these differences, they boil down to the same reality. Time is special, and it's worth swearing an oath by it, wal-asr, for us to have our attention to the importance of time. Have a plan, what you're going to do with money that comes to you in a tax refund, a bonus, a stimulus check, or whatever. Have a plan for it so you don't waste it. But if you don't have a plan, then there is a small harm or a loss that you will suffer. With time, if you don't have a plan, if I don't have an idea what should I do, then the loss will be much greater and it will be irreparable. It will be something that cannot be compensated. So this meaning of time being valuable and unique, and the earlier meaning of Asr time, afternoon time, being particularly unique, they are similar in that they both speak about the importance of being aware and making the most of the time that we have been given. The surah continues, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. People are at loss or in loss. Now, the default that the surah mentions is that human beings will be in loss. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, with certain exceptions. And so the very first question that comes into the mind with this verse is, does Islam believe that people are at loss? Is our default state or our initial state to be in hell, to be punished, to be in loss? Does this have a similarity with the Christian belief in original sin, where human beings are born in sin according to this belief, and then they need to do something in order to come out of that original sin, or the burden of the sin of Adam and Hawa alayhim as-salam? Well, Islam rejects the idea of original sin. Islam does not say that we are born with any burden of sinfulness or of the liability for something that another person has done. No bearer of burdens shall carry the burden of another. But there is still a state of inertia, not because our default state is to be in loss, but inertia will take us to a loss unless we actively do something to achieve salvation. So it's not original sin. We're not born with a burden or a liability for a crime or for a sin or for a mistake that was committed by somebody else. لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. No carrier of burdens shall bear the burden of another person. But we are born not with a liability, but with a responsibility, meaning that we need to do something in order to ensure that we will achieve salvation. I can't just stay passive and say that, well, I was born into a Muslim family, I'm good. I have a good heart, and that's good enough. Allah is merciful, and that's good enough. All of these different things that people sometimes tell themselves to make an excuse for doing what's right are not valid or acceptable. And if a person is passive in that manner, then they will be in loss. Not because it's in their nature to be in loss, not because their default state is to be punished, but rather because their lack of action, their inertia, their passiveness has put them in a loss. But within our nature, there is a fitrah, a God-given disposition to seek what is true, to follow and obey what is right, to look for eternal life. As we saw in Surah Al-Humazah, that there are some people, يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدَ. They think that their money is going to give them eternal life. The desire for eternal life is human nature. It's within our fitrah. Within our fitrah also, though, is the recognition that eternal life and salvation comes through obedience and submission to Allah. And so our default state, if anything, is for us to know what is right and to be guided. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Allah has inspired us in our fitrah to know what is fujur, what is sinful, وَتَقْوَاهَا, and what is piety. But that default, that initial state, requires action and a decision on our part in order to become, to come to fruition, to actually exist. And that is why إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. We start off, if we don't do anything, in a position where we were going towards perdition, loss, punishment. Then what do we need to do to come out of that state? إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. The first of four attributes that we need is correct belief, because that gives us the roadmap to our life. We can do a lot of effort, and there are people who work very hard, but they're working very hard for power. They're working very hard for money. They're working very hard for their reputation or for worldly goals. Sometimes they even think that they're doing it for Allah. So we have to make sure that our roadmap, what we want to work hard for, is something worth it. And that is only to work for Allah. And that is Iman. Believe in Allah. Our roadmap that we've plugged into our internal GPS is to seek closeness to Allah, proximity to Allah, by obeying, by serving, by submitting. That is the first, and we can say the most important step. It's mentioned first in Surah al-Asr. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Believe in Allah and then obey. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. But belief is not sufficient. It's important. It's a necessary condition. It is the most important thing in our salvation. It gives us the roadmap to achieve salvation, but it must be followed with amal salih, with worthy deeds, good deeds. A'mal salihah, salah means worthy and good, and also effective. So after Iman, we should have al-amal as-salih, or amal as-salihat, doing good deeds. And in Arabic, they say that when you have a plural with alif lam, it kind of denotes comprehensiveness. So as-salihat means all good deeds. And of course, no human being has infinite time or knowledge or ability. So none of us can do all of the good deeds. But amilu salihat perhaps is nudging us in the direction of trying to do every good deed that we can do. Don't rest on our laurels and say that, well, I've done good enough. If I have the opportunity, the goal is not just amila salihan, but amila as-salihat, not just to do a little bit of good, but to do the good deeds, all of the good deeds that we are capable of doing. That's the second attribute. Faith, doing good deeds. But then faith in doing good deeds is the beginning point, because we start within ourselves to rectify our character, to righten our own beliefs and conduct. But it shouldn't be limited to ourselves, because the point of Islam is not just for me to get to heaven, but to create a society that is worthy of God's covenant and that is primed for salvation, that is ready for obedience and submission to Allah. And that requires me to move outside of myself, my own faith, my own good deeds, and to also spread the message of truth. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. First of all, we should be helping each other come towards the truth. It should be tawasi. Tawasi means to be an advisor, a person who enjoins what is right in a sympathetic and a sincere manner. It's a wasiyah, like a will to be truthful or to stay with the truth. So tawasi bil haq means the reminding of what is true, to encourage others to follow what is true. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. They admonish each other, enjoin each other with the truth. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And they give a wasiyah of sabr, patience, forbearance, perseverance. So the way in which we make that instruction, that reminder to others, should be sympathetic and sincere. It's tawasi, not just a command, not a harsh kind of a statement that we're making. And it can be in word and deed. By our actions and by our words, we encourage following the truth, and we encourage perseverance. The first thing that we should encourage in our society is haqq, and the second thing is sabr, truth and patience and perseverance. And these two come together. When you commit yourself to the truth, then you are going to have to take a stand. You are going to have people who will oppose you because the truth is harsh and it is bitter. And therefore, we have to be ready to sacrifice. We have to be ready to persevere. There are certain things that you can say and you'll become very popular because it's what people want to hear. But if you want to spread the truth and tell people the truth, they will appreciate it and they will recognize it, but it might take a long time, maybe years, before they realize that what you are saying is true and right. So use the softness that we spoke of when describing the meaning of tawasi, but then don't expect that you'll say something true and immediately people will appreciate and praise you and recognize it. In fact, they may do the opposite. So you should be ready for sabr. Famous statement that those who love Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, let them prepare a cloak for poverty, because following the path of Imam Ali, it's not an easy path, and it leads to sometimes animosity. It leads to distance from those people who do not like to hear a message of haqq, a message of truth, a message of justice. So first truth, and then patience and perseverance. These are the two things that we should encourage within society. And of course, begin with our nearest and dearest. As ahadith tell us, this is to be a legacy for ourselves and our families and our descendants until the day of judgment. So tawasi bil haqqi wa tawasi bil sabr is that I live my life in a way that ensures that my children and inshallah my grandchildren also live a life of piety and purity and faith. And then to society at large. Now, according to some ahadith, al-Asr refers in a general sense to what we've described, but in a particular sense to the time of the reappearance of our Imam, and may Allah hasten his reappearance. In the time of the reappearance of the Imam, inna al-insana lafi khusr, people will be at loss. They will suffer the animosity or the opposition that they had to the true message of Ahlul Bayt. Illa alladhina amanu, those who believe in the message of Prophet Muhammad that he conveyed with respect to Ahlul Bayt. Wa amilu salihat, and they do good deeds in following Ahlul Bayt. Wa tawasaw bil haqq, and they spread the message of wilayat. Wa tawasaw bis sabr, and they spread the message of persevering on the path of Ahlul Bayt and the oppression or injustice that others may inflict upon them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who understand and take to heart the message of Surah al-Asr, and may He make us among those who have faith and do good deeds and spread the message of truth and the message of patience and perseverance on the truth. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.